From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is The Hub with Wang Guan.
Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. China's automobile industry set a new record in the year 2023, seeing both production and sales exceeding 30 million units for the first time. But as China's new energy vehicles, solar voltaic panels, and lithium batteries enjoying booming sales worldwide, some Western media outlets claim that Chinese EV manufacturers' rapid development was driven by subsidies.
I'm determined that the future of electric vehicles will be made in America by union workers, period.
The latest political move from Washington has been a sweeping set of tariffs against Chinese imports, this time targeting green technology goods.
A 100% tariff on electric vehicles made in China. We're also implementing a 25% tariff on electric vehicle batteries from China and a 25% tariff on critical minerals that make those batteries.
Beijing has strongly opposed the move by Washington.
China always opposes the unilateral imposition of tariffs which violate World Trade Organization rules and will take all necessary actions to safeguard its legitimate rights.
Is China's overcapacity really flooding global markets? Or shall we even put a quotation mark on so-called overcapacity? Now, to delve deeper into all these issues, I'm very pleased today to be joined by Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business Economics. And from Hong Kong, China, we have Li Cheng, Director of the Center on Contemporary China and the World at the University of Hong Kong. Welcome, gentlemen, and so good to have you both with us. Let me go to you first, Professor Liu. In the first quarter, China's GDP grew by 5.3% year on year, while another important gauge of the Chinese economy, that is manufacturing capacity utilization, dropped to something like 73.8%. What does these figures tell you?
Well, it is really a moderate progress, actually, as compared with the previous year. And now, under the new drive of new productive forces, that is quite much of the Chinese strategy to upgrade its industrial structure. Some of the industries are facing some painful transformation. And now you can see that the investment in the new industries like, with solar panels, with e-vehicles, with the artificial intelligence are on the rise. But some of those manufacturing sectors that are traditionally enjoying the global marketplace and also enjoying the cheaper labor cost are really suffering a great deal. So this is really a painful but very hopeful transformation where the conventional industries are more giving away to the new way of development, during which some of the companies who are really slow to respond to such change will pay some price.
Well, Professor Chen Li, considering China's ongoing transition towards an innovation-based and consumption-led economy, how do you interpret the relationship between capacity utilization and the broader performance of China's economy?
Well, this is a very, very good question. I'm glad you raised that. First of all, China's GDP growth rate this quarter was higher than the 4.9 expected by many domestic and foreign observers, as well as the growth rate of 4.5 in the same quarter last year. This is much higher, and 5.2 of the previous quarter. Of course, this is a positive development, as Professor Liu mentioned, as we know that the GDP target this year is around 5%. Now, the question is about the relationship between manufacturing capacity utilization, jobs, and with the overall performance or transformation, as Professor Liu said, it's a painful transformation. I think actually it's a very promising transformation as well. Now, manufacturing capacity utilization job is come from several reasons, domestically related with public confidence, consumer confidence, with the structure change of Chinese economy, and international related with global slowdown of economy and the demand and etc. Now, for the domestic confidence, it's easy to fix And I think the Chinese government have a lot of policy to stimulate. So far, they still want to hold this policy. But more importantly, in some of the cutting-edge, manufacturing business, like the EV, like the clean energy, all this kind of equipment, I think China is ahead of many other countries. And also, in terms of the digital economy, China is also ahead of many countries. So I do not see that's an overcapacity issue. I think there's a future. Green development is a future of the global economic growth, the new engine of economic growth, the global stimulus engine. I think that if we put that perspective, I think some Western criticism is more driven by political or security kind of concern rather than really reflect their views about China's contribution to the global economy. Now, whether Chinese the companies are subsidized by government, I think you do not have the solid evidence. Even those people speculated they should provide evidence rather than just speculate on that things. Because again, yes, in some of the traditional manufacturers, because of demand is going down, but China has tremendous potential for urbanization. And the Premier Li said in March in the China Development Forum that if China increased 1% of urbanization, it means 14 million people will move from rural area to urban area. This will stimulate the Chinese demand. So even in that regard, it's also promising.
Yeah, the next important question I want to ask both of you is, why do you think the narrative of overcapacity, why has it found its way into global headlines, especially into Western headlines? First of all, Professor Liu.
It's a matter of perspective. If we look at the Chinese past history, we did suffer a great deal from redundant capacity and excessive capacity because of poor planning. Yeah. And now, when China is now facing the global marketplace, so the horizon has really changed. Because if you look at the consumer ends, particularly the new industries like e-vehicles, new batteries, and solar panels, etc., actually they are in a very hot demand because the whole world are facing the energy the transformation, and particularly now when Europe has been highly disrupted by the supply of fossil energies from the Russia, and therefore if you talk with those people in Africa and Latin America, they all love the new energies, new energy vehicles, new way of generation of power. So if you look at this existing and also the potential demand for new energy, this is really far from being enough. And the fact that China's capacity is now being accused of redundant is that they only look at, number one, within the own Chinese domestic consumption in view of its productive forces. And the other is that they assume that the whole world is going to reject the Chinese, the e-vehicles, for example, which is not really true. And so in that regard, they also point two issues. The one is that because of the national security consideration in this such an area, they're going to reject. And second is that China has artificially inflated its own competitiveness by Chinese own subsidies. It is true that there has been subsidies in the past, and which is really permissible under WTO rules by supporting industries. But I should say it's more of a holistic type of support to boost the Chinese industries by the Chinese government, for example, to build more of the infrastructures for the charging post across China, which is not really available in the United States, although Biden administration promised the country to do so. And the other is that there has been tax breaks, and I think even decisively, it is really the market competition within China that is driving more of the leading force for the Chinese the manufacture, for example, of the e-vehicles. If you look at the figure in 2015 and 17, there were nearly 500 type of e-vehicle makers. Now they are less than 100. So the competition is very tough within China, and those who are really enjoying excellent performance, who are able to manage the global marketplace, they come there to win out. So in the end, it is really the market competition, both within China and outside China, that is really outshining the competitiveness of the Chinese companies.
Professor Li, why do you think the issue of so-called overcapacity in China's EV industries is such a hot-button issue?
Well, this is very much in line that there's still ongoing the narrative that China passed its peak of development. Chinese economy is in big trouble, and so someone said even fatal. And Republican candidates and early on, and all the mainstream of the Republican actually wanted to pursue regime change. And even Democrats, they would not say regime change, but still also talk about slow down China development is a part of strategy. So you can see there's a political strategic reason behind. Now, of course, China still, of course, faces some serious economic challenges, stock market, property market, and the private sector is not doing well. These are real. But at the same time, we should not miss the big picture. The big picture is China is still a major contributor for global economic growth. China is still the second largest economy. Now, again, in some areas that China is advanced in terms of digital economy, in terms of the new alternative energy. Plus, Chinese government emphasizes innovation, and there's a lot of discussion going on. And China wants to compete with the United States in this area, in AI, in many other things. So it's more competition led to this kind of speculation, this kind of blame. Now, of course, that with the economic structure change, there are certain areas maybe there's overcapacity issues, but we should not say that even EV or this kind of green development, as I said early on, it's still the beginning. It's the future of the economic energy landscape. So I think that it's good things to see China move so fast in this area. I think that China's neighboring countries, including ASEAN country and EU, will benefit. But of course, China needs to be sensitive about how other countries look at China. China should provide the evidence. This is development is driven by market, not by government, subsidized. And as Professor Liu mentioned, so I think that this is a great chance to show the world that still market economy will be the main driver for China's economic recovery and for global economic recovery to a certain extent.
Yeah, Professor Li, picking up on the issue of EVs, the president and founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, made a surprise visit to Beijing, and he was actually granted a meeting with Chinese Premier Li Cheng. What do you read into that? What do you think is the significance of that meeting and his visit?
We all remember that 5 or 6 years ago, when Trump engaged trade wars with China, Elon Musk opened his first factory in China, in Shanghai. It's complete 7 months. That development, 5, 6 years ago, make Elon Musk become one of the richest people in the world. His company become everyone's topic. So that's clear indicate China's potential, China's efficiency, and China's a huge market. So that remind us that we wanted to do right judgment, not caught up by these kind of noises, talk about China past the peak and China is in big trouble, China's only engaged overcapacity, and etc. But look at China in a more balanced view. Of course, we should understand China's challenges, but at the same time, look at the potential and look at the great opportunity also represented. So that second meeting and Elon Musk with Li Cheng, now Li Cheng moved from the Shanghai Party Secretary, become premier. That's clear indication that market and development and also foreign trade, openness for foreign investment is still what the Chinese government want to pursue.
Professor Liu, what do you think? What do you make of Elon Musk's visit to China and his meeting with senior, very senior, should I add, Chinese leaders?
I want to add that when the Western competitors and politicians really they used to blame China, we are not really, you are not really doing the right thing. And now that we are doing the right thing, so by contributing to the management of the climate change, by boosting technology advancement, and also by providing more of the environmentally friendly products, now they say, oh, you're not doing the right way. And so, what is really the right way? So that's something that's really very ironical. And now, actually, your question reminds me that like 13 years ago, when Elon Musk was interviewed about the Chinese e-vehicles, and he was so proud of himself that he could, dominate the Chinese marketplace. Now, yes, he was invited, and the fact that he was invited with a lot of the privileges in terms of land, rent, in terms of supply of the labor, and the choice of a location for his company, and particularly, he really broke the record by having the solely owned the business in the auto industry within China. It shows, China was really open, and China was really there to invite competition from overseas, despite of the so-called or blamed overcapacity. And now, during the recent interview and also his meeting with Chinese Premier, he's so much, I should say, delighted. He was not really a jealous man, so that we had such a boom of the industries. Although Tesla still stays on the top in terms of quality and also popularity within China, he noticed that the gap is getting further and narrowed. So therefore, if you really blame the so-called excessive capacity, blame Elon Musk. He brought the inspiration to China, and also he shared some of the open source technologies for Chinese companies to really ride on, which is really we are rather grateful. But it is really the government support, the need for energy transformation, and also the global marketplace that is there to drive the Chinese competitiveness. So 10 years ago, the Chinese global market share was only less than 30%. Now e-vehicles, more than 40%. In terms of solar panel, 10 years ago, the global marketplace share for China was only 40%. Now 80%. So that's really the real picture of the such change that makes some of the competitors and the conservatives uncomfortable.
Talking about Washington, Professor Cheng Li, you lived and worked in Washington for the longest time. And now China is accused by Washington of subsidizing the EVs, the green sectors. But the fact is, America subsidizes its own EV industries and green industries. Back in the day, then President Obama provided huge amount of subsidies to Solyndra, a California-based solar company. And now something like $369 billion was allocated by Joe Biden in his Inflation Reduction Act, the so-called bill to really revive the U.S. economy. What do you make of all this?
This is a very dramatic shift. I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people criticized China for industrial policy. Maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, criticized China, made in China 2025. It's an industrial policy and the industrial, etc. But nowadays, when we talk about protectionism, and also people refer to U.S. Relocation, decoupling, and etc. So that's a really very, very drastic, dramatic change. But this reminds us, I think every country should be aware that we should probably work hard to achieve the growth, more inclusive growth, rather than at the one country's success at the other country's expense. Now, this is a challenge for all countries, not just for China, and the United States should also learn lesson. If they take this kind of protectionist policy, eventually they will suffer. I think that there's a lot of things to learn. And I think that the fact that China, as Professor Liu mentioned, now the leader have a large percentage in clean energy, actually is very, very important. Now that's actually the right thing to do, but at the same time, you also should have empathy about how other countries, particularly EU and many other countries other than United States. For US, it's more in terms of the geopolitics. It's the major power competition will shape the US policy toward China. So it should not be a surprise with these kind of difficulties. At the end of the day, I think that isolationism, protectionism is no solution. It's not a solution. It's not the way to go. It will only hurt yourself. But it may take a longer time for some countries to realize. I think that China should particularly be aware of what happened in Washington, what happened in EU countries. So therefore, to let the people share the growth and pursue more what Chinese leaders talk about, inclusive growth, it becomes so essential.
Right. Professor Liu, what do you think? I mean, how should Western governments, especially Washington, reconcile their criticism of China subsidizing their green EV industries, and while on the other hand subsidizing, having all these forms of subsidies of their own?
Well, liberal economics does not really work. This is something that they have painfully realized, and therefore the government will have to play some proactive role in at least jump-starting certain type of new industry or new way of consumption. And so that's what Joe Biden really wanted to do. But in the meanwhile, we notice that the environment is very difficult to change. For example, at the consumer end, the US consumers, most of them are really not very enthused about the e-vehicles. So this is really the fact. And two is that it is so difficult to coordinate different states to build the infrastructures with charging posts, with the repair facilities, etc. along the way. This is something he really wanted to do strategically, but it is so much difficult to implement. But now there is an opportunity for the collaboration on international front to compensate some of the deficiencies of the U.S. policies. But then, the conservatives will come up, okay, I will not really cooperate with China. And even though China has a lot of manufacturing capacity, not only within its own country, but just in our neighbor in Mexico. And so that means, the threatening of the national security. It's not only in the car industry, but in the heavy lifting cranes, in any type of appliances that has some electronic devices dealing with information. They get so much cautious. And then they also come up with another, far-fetched issue. For example, I like your solar panels, but most of your solar panels are made in Xinjiang. So therefore, there has been allegedly human rights issues. But Xinjiang has the largest landscape in terms of desert, in terms of sunshine. Where do you expect the largest producer of solar panels? So therefore, one is politicians need to find an excuse for their ineffectiveness in policy implementation, and also those competitors also want to find an excuse to stay put instead of going on with innovation to drive competition. And then the workers, particularly in the Rust Belt area, they have such a sense of entitlement. The government should really take care of me, and instead of that, for them to transform their own capacity in learning new skills and to get more adaptive to new industries, etc. So right now the pressure is there, but you can see that both of the subsidies are really, I should say, are the right thing to do. But of course, there are different ways of managing those subsidies. The U.S. is still, trying to give more subsidies to the upper stream of the supply chain by supporting from STEM education and to R&D, etc. but China was more focused on boosting more of the manufacturing capacity. So now, with the end of the supporting policy with subsidies by the end of last year, China is now also learning something that is there in the Inflation Reduction Act, so that we are supporting more of the research development, giving more tax breaks, and also by providing more opportunities to subsidize the training of those of the people. So that really something that's work, and that's also something permissible within the WTO anti-subsidy rules.
Yeah, I would really want to, on that issue, pick the brain of Professor Cheng Li. Recently, China-U.S. relations showed signs of stabilization, to borrow the word of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, where he said China-U.S. relations has bottomed out and is stabilizing against the backdrop of this, what many scholars believe to be this systemic rivalry between China and the United States, and against the backdrop of Washington's insistence on cracking down on high-tech products and EV sectors and others coming from China. Are there any bright spots actually coming out of U.S. and China economic and trade cooperation?
I noticed that Kurt Campbell recently said they want to revisit to put China as a security warning for visit. You also see the increase of the flights and etc. But also that the U.S.-China relation in two crucial areas, I think the Biden administration and the Chinese leadership agree. One is AI dialogue probably will resume very soon, especially human control of the use of nuclear weapon in the era of AI is one. Number two, actually, is related with environment. I think that the scholarly community around the world, including particularly in Europe and but also now increasingly in Asia, but to a certain extent, American academic communities, all keenly aware the challenges of the environment, and this is a common challenge. I think that sometimes President Trump ignore or deny, but I think like-minded people should work together. This is the things that we must do something before too late. This is a global challenge. So in that regard, that's why we said that the green development, the EV and new energy is the future. So I think that I hope that in this area, it's not to point a finger, not exaggerate some of the challenges, and or talk about the overcapacity that too much, but rather to develop that industry to serve the humanity at the time of the rapid change.
Professor Li and Professor Liu, it's really good to have you both with us. And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Our news coverage continues on CGTN. Bye and take care.